This is Hokies All Access, produced by your official local television home of the Virginia Tech Hokies, in association with Virginia Tech Sports Properties. Hokies All Access.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Jermaine Ferrell. Hoping your day is wonderful and blessed like butter. Let's go on a roll, baby, with a little thing we like to call Hokies All Access. Now, in our opening drive segment of Hokies All Access for first quarter action, the Virginia Tech men's basketball team stay in the NCAA tournament was a short one as they fell to Florida in overtime, 75-70. Naheem Aline hit a three-pointer to send the game into overtime, but after that, it was all Gators as they knocked off the Hokies.
And just couldn't get stops, up 8. We miss a layup. They score. We're where we want to be. We're in good shape. Didn't handle some things very well, but I thought Florida played awfully well, and they won. They advanced. We go back to Blacksburg, and that's hard to swallow.
I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nervous at first, but at the same time, when the ball tipped up, all the nerves go away. They were switching a lot, so the big was switching on me, and I had to take advantage. So I had to go to the rack, get fouled, and make plays.
Meanwhile, onto the women's side of things, the Virginia Tech women's basketball team, they fall in the second round. They won their first game in Marquette as to win over Marquette, but then they lost to Baylor. The Hokies' great season has come to an end, and the future looking bright for the women of Tech. All right, folks, it is Full Booth time, and joining me each and every week for Full Booth, the voice of the Hokies, John Laser, and, of course, Virginia Tech Hall of Famer Mike Burnup. They're back from Indy. We didn't want you back so soon, but I'm glad you guys are back safely.
Thanks, Big Daddy. That was a tournament-level hype intro. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, wish that drive would have gone faster, but it was a good time in India. Those people did a nice job of getting everything under control. It's great to see Hinkle Fieldhouse there where Butler plays. That was fun.
Tell you what, it was a neat experience. I love the pictures you guys took. You guys use the tape? Did you measure the basket? Did you do that too?
They wouldn't let us anywhere near the floor, but I did get on Mike's shoulders, and he had no problem lifting up my scrawny frame. And then I took my favorite picture of all time, which is where we were sitting with Mike just outside the concession stand, which was about the happiest I've ever seen him.
Oh my gosh, Big Daddy, that fresh popcorn, we were sitting there sniffing it, smelling it. It was like a magnet. I mean, we got like drawn right over there to the concession stand and got the two biggest buckets that they had. It was unbelievable stuff.
And I'm sure Coach Young loved the popcorn, but he obviously didn't love the result as we talked to him after the game. Obviously, a tough one in overtime. Virginia Tech losing to Florida by the score 75-70. Tough loss for the Hokies. And guys, just give me your thoughts about that game. Tech had a 10-point lead at one point, and then all of a sudden Florida came back, and then Tech came back, sent it to overtime, and things went apart there.
Yeah, I think the unfortunate thing about it is you never want to have your season end with a list of what ifs. And unfortunately, I think that's how Virginia Tech's players and their staff walked away from that game. And it's a credit to Florida because they executed better down the stretch. They made some very difficult shots, particularly Trey Mann with those 2 step-back threes. But with all that said, and I said this numerous times on the broadcast, continued to believe it, Virginia Tech was the better team. They were the more skilled team. Again, credit to Florida and their head coach, Mike White. He made a tremendous halftime adjustment, and the Hokies had a really difficult time guarding their chin series, as we call it, which is the ball screen and roll. And that's going to happen to you. But I know in talking to Coach Young that he felt like it was a game that his team could have won, which is great because it means you're at that level. But then making it doubly hurtful was Oral Roberts pulling the upset of Ohio State. And it's not to say you were going to beat Oral Roberts, but you would have been favored by about 9.
Yeah, it was disappointing. I mean, you thought the matchup was good, and the Hokies, it was almost like a carbon copy to me of the ACC tournament. The Hokies played really well in the first half, and then in the second half, for whatever reason, they ran out of gas. The other team just got better, hit more shots, but, Florida shot over 60% in the second half, and the big guy Castleton just really came along and had 15 points, I think, and 8 rebounds in the second half, and he dominated inside, and the Hokies had no answer for him late in that game. And then you got to get, when you're playing at this level at the NCAA tournaments, you got to get stuff, good contributions out of all 5 guys and guys off the bench. And unfortunately, the bigs didn't show up or didn't play well enough to win. Kevin Luma had a kind of a subpar day. I think Justin Mutz, who was great against Carolina, didn't have as good a game, and they both fouled out. And so between the two, what they get, 12 or 13 points. It just wasn't enough to compete with their big guy who had more points and rebounds than our two guys. So, yeah, but I think the future's very bright. They had their chances, nothing to worry about there. And I think the future's really, really bright. I mean, you think about all those guys that are coming back, and Coach Young, I'm sure he's disappointed and it's stung for a few days, but now you look to the future. And I think the future's bright. The foundation is definitely laid.
And indeed, I'm sure Tech, they're going to be rocking and rolling next year. They will definitely be back in the mix. Now let's turn our attention to the women. They did get a win, although they had to sweat it out a little bit against Marquette and at San Antonio. But then, obviously, let's face facts, Baylor is Baylor, and it was a tough loss as they lost on Tuesday night to Baylor by a score 90-48. But overall, just your thoughts about the NCAA run for the women's team, guys.
Well, I thought it illustrated two things, Jermaine, and the first of that is a major positive, and that is the fact that Kenny Brooks has steadily, we'll use the men's motto, stone by stone, built that program since he got here, and it's a real testament to him because this is a program that hadn't been to the NCAA tournament since 2006. This should have been the second consecutive year in which they made it, and made it pretty solidly. I think they would have made it even more solidly a year ago than this year. You also see, I believe, in women's basketball, something you see in football. There are really defined tiers in terms of the level of ability in teams. And in football, what do we always talk about? It's Clemson, it's Ohio State, it's Alabama, and pick your fourth team, whoever you want to put in there, and they're in the playoff every year. It's the same thing in women's basketball. UConn for eons was above everyone else. I think they made their 27th consecutive Sweet 16. That's just absurd. At times, you've had other programs that have joined them, the Tennessees, the Stanfords, the South Carolinas, and most recently the Baylors. And what we saw in the second round was exactly what you're striving for. It's kind of like when Virginia Tech plays Clemson right now in football. You're very good. You've come a long way. And it just was an opportunity to see up close and personal just how far you still have to go.
I think Kenny Brooks called it right. He said that was just a bad matchup for us. You looked at that when you saw the draw come out. You felt good about the first game against Marquette, and they did play well and hung on and got that victory, but you knew it was going to be a different challenge against Baylor because they're so good. They're the defending champions. They've been, I think, 12 Sweet 16s in a row, and so just a different vibe there. I mean, they got such height and length and physicality. It was going to be a difficult matchup, and the Hokies kind of got down and never could claw their way back out. I mean, that was a big hole they were in. But I love the direction of the program. I mean, you think about this team, how far they came this year. When you think about the guys that they lost last year, I mean, that was a good team last year. Unfortunately, couldn't go to the tournament because of COVID. But this year, some of the girls left, right? And then they had to take their time to kind of get in the lineup right and find them the right mix. And then they went on that run and won 6 or whatever it was in a row and kind of got into a little bit of a groove and were playing well going into the tournament. And, a different matchup, it might have been a different result. But playing Baylor was very, very difficult. And I don't think you can look at the final score just to see how far this program has gone and how Kenny's doing, and I think next year they'll be even better.
Indeed, and you know what? There'll be brighter days ahead for Virginia Tech men's and women's basketball, guys. And speaking of brighter days and brighter things ahead, another round of Full Booth with John and Mike as we're going to flip the script here, talk a little Virginia Tech football and especially pro days, which will take place coming up on a Friday. So don't forget, guys, we have more Full Booth later on Hokies All Access. And coming up on said show, 4 Virginia Tech student athletes get a special honor from the ACC. Stick and stay, please.
Produced by your official local television home of the Hokies. This is Hokies All Access.
And welcome back to the Maroon and Orange Express, also known as Hokies All Access, during our Hokie Highlights segment of Hokies All Access with second quarter action. The ACC has selected its 2021 Weaver James Corrigan Postgraduate Scholarship Award recipients, and 4 Hokies were honored on Wednesday. Included on the list were Bisa Beatty of men's basketball, Nika Kozar of women's tennis, Darby Troll of softball, and Regan Westwood of women's swimming and diving. Now, each recipient will receive $6,000 toward his or her graduate education. Those honored have performed with distinction in both the classroom and their respective sport, while demonstrating exemplary conduct in the community. More Virginia Tech sports notes to tell you about 3 wrestlers placed in the NCAA championships last week. 6th-year senior Corbin Myers placed 4th at 133 pounds. At 125 pounds, redshirt freshman Sam Latona placed 6th. Redshirt junior Hunter Bolin claimed 7th place at 184 pounds. And following her weekend of racking up 46 strikeouts, Virginia Tech softball pitcher Keely Richard was named the ACC Pitcher of the Week on Wednesday for the first time this season and the 7th time of her storied career. Earlier in the week, Richard was named NFCA National Pitcher of the Week for the 2nd time this season. Coming up on Hokies All Access, David DeGuzman shares the story on the Women of Tech's Alamo City experience. This is Hokies All Access.
Produced by your official local television home of the Hokies. This is Hokies All Access.
And welcome back to Hokies All Access with third quarter action. The Virginia Tech women's basketball team took their talents to the Lone Star State to compete in the NCAA tournament in San Antonio, Texas. And David DeGuzman caught up with the Hokies as they shared their Alamo City experience.
The Virginia Tech women's basketball team had plenty of memories from their NCAA experience in San Antonio, where the Hokies battled Marquette and Baylor in the team's first tournament appearance since 2006.
Food is great. We're in a tremendous hotel right on the Riverwalk.
It's really exciting, especially because of last year. You know, we've talked about that a lot with kind of getting that taken away from us. And so now we know we're not taking advantage of it. We're soaking it all in and we're enjoying it, even though we can't really leave our rooms very often.
Even Australian native Georgia Amor enjoyed exploring a new part of the country that she had never been to.
I mean, I know you're from down under, so did you even hear about where San Antonio was or where even Waco, Texas was before you got to Virginia Tech?
I knew where San Antonio was because Patty Mills plays for San Antonio Spurs, so that's all I knew. But Liz and I were talking about it this morning. We were talking about Waco. I have no idea what that is. She was talking about some TV show. I don't know what it was.
Liz, we'll have to talk about Wfxr Upper at some point. Have a good one.
That's the one. That's the one.
Wfxr.
Turns out Liz Kitley and I both have something in common. We're both fans of the popular HGTV show Wfxr Upper. For Hokies All Access, I'm David DeGuzman.
Thank you so much, David DeGuzman. We have another round of Full Booth with John and Mike talking about Hokies football. This is Hokies All Access. All right, folks, welcome back to Hokies All Access fourth quarter action. And in the fourth quarter, we have Full Booth and rejoining me again, the voice of the Hokies, John Laser, and, of course, Virginia Tech Hall of Famer Mike Burnup. And we're talking football now, but before we talk about the spring game, obviously Pro Day taking place on a Friday, all the players with an opportunity to show their skills in front of the NFL scouts. Guys, just your thoughts about, Pro Day and the guys that are going to be participating in that, and who the pros really should keep their eye on, if not all of them.
Well, I think you've got the two guys that are going to get all the headlines going into it. And even though he won't participate due to a health issue, Caleb Farley and Christian Darrisaw. And because of those two guys and a handful of others that you have, you're going to have a lot of interest in Blacksburg on Friday from NFL general managers. I think at last count, there were at least a handful coming. You're going to have an NFL network crew there. So you're going to have an opportunity for exposure to the program. And when people are watching this draft coverage, namely recruits going, hey, that's a program that is producing pros, particularly at the top round of the draft or in the top round of the draft. So it's an opportunity for Virginia Tech to capitalize. But now to the nuts and bolts, is there a lot of work to be done for Farley and Darrisaw? No, not at all, because you just essentially have to show up and not fall flat. And that's what the goal will be for Christian Darrisaw, who's the top half of the top round projection right now, potentially the second left tackle off the board. And what a phenomenal testament that is to his work ethic. But you go a little farther down, it is going to be an impactful day for guys like Divine Diablo, Khalil Herbert, even a Jared Hewitt I ran into yesterday out at spring practice, where he's talking about, I just want a shot. Well, guys like that, and Mike knows this, are going to have to show up and showcase what they can do to get drafted. He'll probably get a free agent shot regardless, but the pressure resides not necessarily on those top two headliners, but the other 4 or 5 guys that have a chance to be drafted.
Yeah, I mean, it's an exciting time, especially for those two. It's unfortunate the combine can't happen because of COVID and whatnot. Because, you get around those other guys and you may get an extra tenth of a second out of your 40 time or 4 or 5 more reps off that bench press just because you got so many eyes on you looking and whatnot. But I think those two guys are going to be in great shape, and Darisol and Farley, certainly exciting for them. Happy for those two guys. They put in the work and it's paid off. And the other guys, yeah, they'll get a shot. You just don't know how they get in. You got to get lucky in the NFL, man. You got to get in the right situation. You got to get into one that favors you, and you maybe have a lack of depth at your spot, and then you can kind of shine and show what you're all about. So for those other guys like the Diablos and the Herberts and whatnot, they're going to get a shot. It's just a matter of that they get in the right situation, and hopefully they can impress some people on Friday and see what they got and move forward from there.
Now, guys, one other big note that came from the Virginia Tech football program: spring football game will not take place this year. So it'll be the second straight year we will not have a spring football game due to COVID restrictions. Even though Governor Ralph Northam did loosen some of the restrictions, let more people through, the experience of Virginia Tech football and giving it to the fans, obviously they want to make sure it's the right experience and want to save everything to the fall. So just want to get real quick you guys' thoughts about the cancellation of the spring game.
Well, I want our fans to know a couple of things, and one is there's great disappointment within the athletic department and the football program that it's not taking place, particularly for a second consecutive year. As Mike's been around for decades, it's one of the great passages of winter to spring and on to the next season is spring football, and COVID has taken that once again this year. But I want to make it clear, we've made tremendous mistakes as a country in terms of loosening restrictions, and I credit Virginia Tech. It's not the athletic department that's making this decision. It's campus that's making this decision, because they're saying, regardless of whether we can put people in Lane Stadium, that's not the right decision, and neither is it to have in-person graduation, because ultimately, would you rather have that, or would you rather have 67,000 in Lane Stadium this fall? Because we cannot afford to take even a half step back at this point if that's to be the case. The second is, I know there's a lot of conversation about why won't you stream the game? Well, there isn't going to be a game is the point. There's going to be 15 practices. Some of those are scrimmages. It really doesn't benefit the program whatsoever to put stuff on tape, even if it is vanilla and watered down, and let everybody else see it. And I know it's disappointing for the fans. It sucks for everybody, but it is what it is, to use my least favorite cliche.
Yeah, and the Hokie Nation is starving to see football, right? I mean, they couldn't get in the stands last year. Think about the UVA game, as great as it was. There's 250 people there, right? I mean, it does stink. And so the people wanted to come to the spring game and whatnot. I understand that, but if you couldn't tailgate, you're going to have to cut the limit of people in there. That was going to be disappointing, and I'm sure across campus they're thinking, if we got a chance to have graduation, it's probably a little more important than it is to have a spring game. So I understand the logic behind it. I don't necessarily like it, and I'm sure a lot of people don't, but that's the way it is. And you certainly hope that things will get back to normal in the fall. And I know after last year not having spring practice, these spring practices are big. And, if you can get one more day in of practice and one more day in of kind of getting the chemistry between your receivers and a quarterback's going to be starting, a few more games than he did last year, and working with the offensive line and defensive line and getting that defensive staff together and coaching those guys up a little bit. I think that's really important to get that extra practice. So it is what it is. Hopefully the fall will be back to normal. And when you couldn't have recruits here anyway, that spring thing, man, that was a big recruiting weekend too. And if you weren't able to bring kids in, that certainly was a negative as well. So hopefully the fall will be back to normal.
Indeed. And it's going to be fun times, as they say, as obviously you got to put in the work to get ready for a big fall. I tell you what, guys, I really appreciate y'all. Each and every week, it's full booth, baby, with John.